This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another presentation series session. Today, we're joined by Sandra and Robin Sukan from Pembina Active Living 55 Plus, here to present on easy meals with rotisserie chicken. We're looking at 5 easy meals, 2 serving meals, prepared for under $20. So if everyone could mute their mics and actually use the chat function, and I will pass your questions along to Sandra and Robin. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll get started.
Okay, well, thanks everyone. I'm Sandra, of course, and this is Robin, and most of you probably know us. So we're going to do this session tonight on some simple meals you can make with one rotisserie chicken. So I'm going to start. Robin is going to be my sous chef. We're going to kind of be doing this together. So we haven't run through it and scripted it. So this is what you get is what you get. So I just wanted to mention that these aren't like particularly recipes. So you don't have to follow along with, like we don't have a recipe that you're following along with. So these are kind of like meal ideas. So you can certainly substitute things in between. So when we're going through the presentation, it's really just showing you different things you can do with the rotisserie chicken. So the first thing I wanted to mention is that we buy our rotisserie chicken from Costco, but you can buy it from wherever. And I think probably, lots of people buy theirs from Costco. So it occurred to me one day when I was buying this chicken, I wonder what you can do with the rotisserie chicken. So for decades, I've been making bone broth. So usually I strip off the meat and then, sometimes we buy the chicken and we use it right away, and other times we don't. But I think the chickens at Costco, and Robin can probably verify that, they're about $8 or something like that.
Yeah, it's the best chicken in town.
Yeah, so it's about $8 for a chicken. And so what I did was I just stripped it off the bone and just weighed all the meat that I actually got from it, just to see how much meat you actually get from it and what you can do with it. So when I did that, I ended up with about almost 2 pounds of chicken. So I think the one you get from Costco is a little over, a little over a kilogram, which is 2.2 pounds. So the carcass of it really doesn't weigh all that much. So what I usually do with mine is I shredded off the chicken, and then I put them in Ziploc bags. So I'm just going to show you. So I consider about 3 ounces of chicken is usually a serving of chicken. So I have these little Ziploc bags that I put them in, and I'm not sure if you can see. If you can't, you can probably choose the view on your camera. This is more like logistical stuff. Choose the view on your camera instead of viewing everyone. You can just view the speaker, and so because I'm speaking, you'll see me only, or the two of us only, our screen. So anyway, so what I do is I separate out the chicken into about 3-ounce bags of chicken. So it's usually about this much. So that's what we're going to do today, and we're just going to show you the different things you can do. So because there are 2 of us, of course I'm using 2-person meals, but certainly you can use one package of chicken for a meal. So these are just some meal suggestions that you can do. And while I didn't break it down to the very minute, 1 carrot is 30 cents or something like that, what I did was when I looked at all the ingredients we're doing for all the meals, it worked out to about $20. So for instance, I make scones. I'm not going to count the little bit of flour that I use and try to calculate that. So when I'm saying about $20, it's probably no more than $20, because the things I'm using, you probably have in your kitchen anyway. So the chicken is probably the most expensive thing. So I usually put them in the bags, and then I put them in a big Ziploc bag. So when I need a meal, I can just pull out a bag of chicken and assemble it with different kinds of things. And so that's what we're really going to be doing today, not just assembling, but actually cooking some things, but they're not recipes. So the first one we're going to do is most of us, we can't go to Mexico this year because, of the times we're living in. So we decided to recreate Mexico, and we're going to make quesadillas, because usually around this time we're in Mexico. So we bought a package of quesadillas, and now I'm going to use 4 of them. So while you might have a whole package of quesadillas, I'm calculating what 4 quesadillas would cost if you were using them. So I'm gonna make so 4 quesadillas or 4 wraps for me and 4 for Robin. But the idea is that I have the wraps here, and I'm gonna do 1 set anyway. So I'm gonna have two quesadillas for myself, and so these are about 4 or 5-inch tortillas, and I think you can kind of see them from there. So I'm gonna make them, and then Robin is gonna put them in the frying pan and watch them while I go on to the next thing because we don't have all night. So basically it's just tortillas, and you might have done that before, but we're gonna take some chicken, and so my 3 ounces of chicken, I'm gonna put it. So this is just 1 serving. The other tortillas I can make, but this is for 1 person. But I have enough chicken for 2 people. So I'm gonna put the chicken that I'm gonna eat for my tortillas for my quesadillas on the 2 tortillas. Then I'm gonna add some, and again, the other package is still here, so we have enough to go around.
So I gotta do this myself if I'm not
No,
eating?
This is his, or he can share one of mine. And then I'm gonna put a little bit of cheese. And you can use any kind of cheese. So like I'm saying, these are just suggestions that I'm giving. So this here is a cheese blend. So it has like cheddar and mozzarella. So I like cheddar and I like mozzarella. So it's nice and kind of stretchy when it's melted. And then I have and all this, I like to do a lot of prep work. I love to cook and eat. So what I have here is some jalapeno peppers, and I like to have my jalapenos in the quesadilla. And so this is jalapenos and a bit of green onions. Actually, they're chives from my garden that I froze. So when I'm assembling this, it really takes no time. The chicken is already done. The cheese is already shredded up. My jalapenos are already chopped up and put in the freezer. My garlic chives are from the summer, and I'm basically just putting the 2 tortillas and covering them, and then I'm going to heat them up in the frying pan. And now this is stuff you may have done already, but this is basically 1 meal. So I'm going to put those in the frying pan. Okay, so while that's heating up, I'm going to make a little side salad. So most of us like romaine lettuce, and we make a Caesar. But in the wintertime, I don't like cold food. So I like my food kind of warm. And I know it sounds sort of outrageous, but I actually, when I go to a restaurant, I kind of would prefer them to put my salad and warm it up a little, or put some warm oil on it, something to warm it up. I don't like cold food. So same thing with romaine lettuce. So most of us would make a salad out of the romaine lettuce. So, but one of the things that I like to do is like a romaine spears. So I just cut it down the long side of the romaine, and the head part is held together. The leaves are held together with the head, sort of like when you're cutting a cabbage. And so you have some nice little wedges. So you can cut this in 2, or you can cut this in 4. So I actually have 2 of these. So if you feel really hungry, you can eat the whole head. But for 2 people, you might want to have half a salad. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to grill this or warm it up in a frying pan. So I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil in the frying pan and actually grill the wedge, because then it warms it up nicely. And it sounds like it should really be wilted and taste horrible, but it actually has a really nice flavor. So I'm just gonna, you don't mind my back on you. The frying pan is just heating up. We're just gonna drizzle it a little bit with some oil in the frying pan, and then just put this in the frying pan. So these are also really good on the barbecue. If you in the summertime, if you like to have a kind of a grilled salad, you can cut this into 4, and so you have more kind of surface area that you can grill. And what you would do with this is just drizzle the oil on it, and then put it on the grill. And that works actually really good. So I'm just going to use some olive oil. You can use whatever oil you want, but we like to use olive oil, or if you like coconut oil, it's nice. I just don't like coconut oil on the salad. I do like it, I just don't like it on the salad. Or we also use avocado oil quite frequently. If you're a real meat eater, you can use something that's called schmaltz. And does someone know what schmaltz is? Put it in the chat if you know what it is. Or nod your head so I can know that you know what it is. No, I don't see any. I don't see any nodding. I see shaking of the head. Okay, so the pandemic was really good for me because I love to cook and I love to bake and I love to eat and all that kind of stuff. And so I was YouTubing a bunch of stuff over last summer, and they were talking about schmaltz, and it's like, what is that? Because I was learning to do all kinds of things. Well, it turns out schmaltz is just basically chicken fat, chicken skin rendered down until you get the chicken fat out of it, and it's used in like Jewish recipes for dumplings and things like that. So I've not had a lot of Jewish food, so I don't really know, but apparently that's what flavors the dumplings and make them taste really delicious. So I decided that what I used to do when I make bone broth and I make cauldrons of it, I would throw out the chicken fat. And so then I started collecting the chicken fat and cooking with it and realizing that it is like amazingly delicious when you cook with it. So tonight I put a little bit of olive oil in the frying pan, but I'm going to add a little bit of schmaltz to it as well. So basically what I did was I just made my bone broth and chilled it in the fridge. And then when it chilled, it just ended up with this like bunch of fat that most of us would probably throw away. So you don't cook with like oodles amount of it, just probably a teaspoon of it. So I'm going to put a little bit in the frying pan. And what it's going to do is it's just going to flavor the grilled wedges really nicely. Yeah. So Robin has done his grilling. Okay, so I'm just going to put these in the frying pan and grill. And that's going to be grilling in the meantime. Then avocados are really, really inexpensive right now. I think at Superstore they're like, I don't know, 5 for under $3. So you can get an avocado. Oh, and this one is delicious. It's really nice and ripe. So if you like to, you can just use half an avocado. And so imagine I'm making up 2 plates here, but in this case, we're just doing one, so you can see what it looks like. And so you would cut your avocados, and most of you know how to like cut and then put the seed and take it out so you don't cut up your hands or something. So apparently in hospitals, that's mostly what they see accidents, people cutting their hands from trying to cut an avocado. So I'm going to put the wedges here. I'm going to arrange my quesadillas.
Time for me to have supper now?
And I'm just going to finish grilling my salad, my lettuce. Okay, and I don't know what kind of salad dressing you like, but this Renee's is like one of the best. I like it. It's really, really creamy. But what I find, it's so thick that sometimes it's hard to spread. So usually what I do is I add a little bit of olive oil to it, and I make my own vinegar. So depending on the flavor of vinegar, you can add just apple cider or date vinegar or whatever kind of vinegar. So we just thin ours down a little because it's a little easier to eat. And then the spears look like this. You can see it has little marks on it, right? Put it on your plate. So Robin is going to have to start eating now because I'm making all this stuff. And then you just drizzle your salad dressing, and you have a meal. Yeah. So your rotisserie chicken is ready to go. One meal, well, 2 meals. We just made one. So meal number 1. Okay. So, oh, you're not eating? Oh, okay. So meal number 2. What we're gonna do, I'm gonna make a pot pie, but again, I have kind of like a little cheater's way of doing it. It's not really cheating, it's just doing it efficiently. So what I have here is some mixed veg, and most of you can buy the frozen ones. I like to buy in the wintertime the frozen ones because they're really easy to use. And so I pre-cooked them a bit last night just because in preparation for this. And then I'm gonna add my chicken in there. So this is, I'm making the 2 sets of chicken. So I put my 2 sets of chicken in there. And then I'm gonna make a cream sauce to go with this. So most chicken pot pies will tell you to make like some kind of a white sauce, and it's really complicated. And I'm really not into complicated. I love to cook, but I also like to cook efficiently. So usually what I do when I'm making the cream sauce is I have some chicken broth from the carcass that I bought from the rotisserie chicken. I made chicken broth, and usually I get about 3 or 4 cups of broth. I just put it in the pressure cooker for a couple of hours, and it just really concentrates and really gels nicely. So I'm going to put that in my frying pan. So that's the chicken broth, and I had some onions that I like to cook up a bunch of onions and just put them in Ziploc bags in the freezer, because sometimes when I'm cooking, I just don't want to be bothered to go and take out an onion to cut up a quarter of an onion. So I find that if I caramelize it, I actually have onion that tastes really good. I can just pull out a little bag from the freezer, and it's already caramelized to the point where I need it for my recipe, and I don't have to spend 15 minutes doing that. So on those down days that you have where you're, yeah, maybe you don't have anything to do, like none of us have anything to do these days, you can do things like that to kind of do some prep work ahead of time. And then I have some cream cheese here. And again, I do the same thing. I buy blocks of cream cheese from Costco, and I cut them up into little, like, half-ounce blocks. You can kind of see. And then I put them on a saran wrap, like, and freeze them so that when I'm ready, I can pull out a little piece. So we don't have a lot of wastage in our house because I actually use all the stuff that I buy, but if I prep it ahead of time, I can, it saves me a lot of work. It sounds like it's a lot of work to do, but really you're not doing this every day. So I always have cream cheese if I need to have it. So my chicken broth and my onions are heating up there. And I'm just gonna melt the cream cheese in there. And really, that's like a 5-minute job. I'm just basically waiting for the cream cheese to melt. And so while it's melting there, I've got my mixed veggies in here, I've got my chicken in here, and because I also, don't have a life and don't have anything to do, I really do, I'm just saying that. I pre-make scones as well. So, those British scones you like to eat when you go to those fancy little afternoon tea things. So I make them and I freeze them ahead of time. So they have a dual purpose. So I can just cook these up directly from the freezer as just scones, and they're really nice and buttery, and I have a really, really easy recipe for this. But it tastes like heaven. And so I make them in really small, small sizes, because I like them so much. I like the surface area, sort of the crunchiness on the outside and the sort of soft, fluffy, like croissant-y texture on the inside, like the flakiness of it. So I freeze a lot of these, make a lot of these and freeze them as well. And when do I do that? Usually, 11 o'clock at night when I'm not ready to sleep. So what I'm going to do with this for the pot pie is I'm going to use my scones that I made, like the dough, and I'm going to cut those so you don't have to go and make like dumplings for them or some kind of a crust on them. So I'm actually going to just take these and cut them in half because they're kind of thick. And that's going to be my crust for my pot pie. And my oven is heating up there. And so Okay, so Robin melted the cream cheese, and so like it's no work. It was really literally just some broth melted with some cream cheese. I mean, you can use other kind, and you know, you can use whipping cream if you like, or thick cream. But really, this was no work. You just really just heat it until it melts in the frying pan. And then I'm gonna mix it together. And you can flavor this with different kinds of seasonings if you like. We like spicy stuff, so sometimes we'll flavor thing, give it a spicy flavor, but you can use whatever kind of spices you want. If you don't have chicken, you can use beef. You can use, you know, like really you can make a vegetarian pot pie too by using like tofu. I'm not a tofu person, I can tell you. People love it. I'm not one of those people. And people have said, try it, try the firm one, try the soft one, we've tried it, I've tried it all. Tofu is just not something I like. I love vegetarian food. We grew up eating vegetarian foods, not tofu. And so we can find all kinds of really beautiful ways to make food that isn't tofu. Okay, so this is a 2 serving. So I'm going to use these little Corningware bowls, and I'm just greasing it here a bit. And I have to show you my little oil well. I've had this thing for 40 years. It has a little spring in here, keeps my oil there, and you just dunk it in. It has a little mop at the end that I keep changing when the mop burns out. And it's so great. It's a really great tool. So I grease that. I'm going to separate the pot pie stuff, which is actually quite a bit. So you might not want to be eating all of this, but it's a 2 meal. So I'm just going to put it in the container, split it between the two. And you'll have a generous meal here because with the veggies and the chicken, and they're all like 3 ounces of chicken, so it's not tons of chicken. And then what I'm going to do is put what would be a crust, but I'm going to put my scone at the top to cook. And then pick up another one. And again, you can just cook these as scones, or you can just cut them in half and use them as like biscuits. So I'm going to put those there. So that's going to form kind of your topping. The other thing you can do is just, you know, if you have some leftover mashed potatoes, or even slice them really thin and cook them for about, just cook them for about 5 minutes, and then put it in the oven. And I'm just going to drizzle a little bit of oil. So this is just some avocado oil, and just on the top a little bit. And we're going to stick it in the oven, and that's going to cook while we're continuing the next one. Okay, so that was meal number 2. Meal number 3. This one is a pasta and chicken one. So we have the chicken, 2 sets of chicken again. I cooked some pasta and some broccoli. And so what I'm going to do now is turn on my stove, put in some of my schmaltz in there. And what I have here is my pasta, my chicken. I have some cream cheese because I want to make this kind of like a creamy pesto sauce. So I grow basil in the summer, and I just freeze them in ice cube trays. And I know this looks kind of messy, but I put a little bit of oil in it, and the basil. We love to garden, and we love to eat stuff from our garden. So this is just basil. So I don't make it into like an actual pesto, because I found it was just taking up too much room. And sometimes I also just want to use the basil. I don't want it to be pesto. So this is just basil. This is the onion that I caramelized before and had in Ziploc bags. So that's what I'm going to use for this recipe. So all I'm going to do now is use some schmaltz. some of my little bit of my chicken fat. And if you haven't used this before, you really have to. It's so great. I mean, it's also good on things like French fries. If you go to places like Piazza di Nardi, they have the duck fat, and a little jar like this is about $15. So usually I just make my own duck fat too, because we eat. Robin doesn't eat beef or pork, so we eat duck and chicken and things like that. And so if we cook duck, I'll save the skin, and when we have like maybe 3 duck skins, sets of skin, I'll just basically boil it down or simmer it for about an hour or so until all the fat renders out, and then I collect it. And it is the most delicious taste. You know, you go to a restaurant and they say, oh, chicken, French fries with duck fat, and you think, oh, that tastes so good. Well, you can make your own duck fat. Okay, so I'm just heating up the frying pan. So it has a little bit of fat, and I'm going to put some avocado oil in there. And what we're going to do is just actually cook. We're basically heating the pasta, but if you were starting from scratch, you had your chicken, you might want to cook the pasta. And then, so we were using whole wheat pasta here, and it's part cooked. And then you just throw in some broccoli, again, frozen. Costco has like 2 kilograms of broccoli. We buy them, but what's nice about it is that it comes in 500-gram containers, packages, so you don't have to open 2 kilograms of it. So what I'm going to do is just put this in the frying pan. But so just assume that you're kind of making it. And I measured out the serving of pasta per person, like 85 grams per person. But when I finished cooking up, it's like, that's a lot of pasta. I don't eat that much pasta. But that's what it was. So what you're seeing in the container there is actually just a recommended serving size for a meal. So for 2 people, that's actually what it is. So Robin is just stirring that. And what I'm going to do now is just put in the basil and the onions that I have already pre-cooked. And then I'm going to put in the cream cheese as well. This is just like 3 little squares of it. So it's probably about maybe 1.5 ounces of cream cheese. And we like to do that because a few years ago we were on the Amalfi Coast, and we were in this little villa in this little place called Friano. And no one buys, like, they just go to the grocery store every day because it's just easy to do. And the people at the grocery store had fresh basil, and the little old lady, who was probably about 90 years old or something, loved us and was telling us about, giving us her fresh basil. And so this particular day, we were trying to find a sauce from a can, which we couldn't find. And so we just ended up picking up the cream cheese and bringing it home and getting some chicken broth. And then that became our Amalfi recipe, because it was kind of like a happy accident, but it ended up being great. And it's like, oh, it makes it so the pasta so nice and creamy, and it makes all your basil or your pesto really kind of cling to your pasta, because the cream cheese sticks to the pasta and sort of just gives it a really nice flavor. Okay, so Robin is just taking care of that. While I'm just going to add a little bit of water just to loosen it up. Usually you wouldn't have to do this if you just made the pasta from fresh, but because I kind of pre-cooked it just so we can cover everything, it's sticking a little. So while he's doing that, so basically that was like the chicken and some onions and some basil and some broccoli and a bit of cream cheese. And again, I'm just going to put both portions on the plate so you can kind of see how much it is. So you can see that's supposed to be 2 servings, but that's quite a bit there. So most likely you're not going to be eating all of this. You decide you want to, I just wanted to do the serving the way they say a serving is. So this is like 2 servings that looks like a platter of food. And I can bet you 2 of you won't be able to eat this. But there's enough chicken and pasta here that you could probably share with someone else. Like eat it and take it for work. Well, none of us are working on this, I don't think. So that's our chicken and pasta recipe. And again, if you were making this at home, I mean, you could use different kinds of pasta. We just use the spaghetti noodles here. You could use penne. You could use spaghettini. You could use any kind of pasta. You could substitute the chicken for something else. Like we've also used shrimp or scampi or seafood. Actually, when we were in Amalfi, we ended up using seafood in our pasta with the cream cheese. And so, yeah, that's our favorite kind of family recipe now, as our Amalfi pasta, we call it. Okay, so that's meal number 3. Meal number 4 is this really delicious Thai curry. So we're going all over the world. So it's Italian, it's English, we're now in Thailand. So this one is super, super easy. I'm just starting my my broth for recipe number 5. So okay, so this one is a Thai red curry. So I don't know if you've gone to any Thai restaurants in Winnipeg. There's one on Pembina Highway. That's a really good one. It's right down from Stella's. It's really nice. There's also one on Portage, also really good food. But there's also one at 39 Eagle Ridge Court, which is this house here. And we like to make Thai curry. So, but because I don't want to go through all the trouble of having to start from scratch with everything, by accident again, and lots of times, like Robin does the grocery shopping. Usually when I go, it's just to wander around the store once every 3 or 4 months to see if there's something new in the store. And I came across this Asian House spice mix. And this one is called a spice base, and it's a Thai red curry. And they also have a Thai yellow curry, and they have a Thai green curry. I don't really like the green curry all that much because I find it's a little too like watery. I don't like the flavor of it. But this red curry is really good. So if you've gone to a Thai restaurant and you've had that Penang curry, that's basically what this is. So it comes in a little package like this. And I find this Asian House Gourmet is a really, really good, nice combination of flavors. And so it comes in a little pouch like this, and it does have directions at the back here, but I kind of modify mine. So this one is calling for raw chicken, but I'm using like, just because I like to be quick sometimes. If I'm hungry right away. And so it comes in a little pouch like this. So the outer package is like this with the instruction, and this one here has all really nice flavors. So that's what we're going to make. So it usually calls for some veggies. So I'm going to use some potatoes because I like potatoes. So I'm just in the interest of like, because I don't like to take a long time to cook some things. Some things I'll take like hours to cook because I make sourdough bread too. And you know, some of those things, they can take 24 hours. So I'm going to cut up this potato really small so that it cooks quickly. And I'm probably only going to use 2 potatoes because these are kind of big-ish. So decide how much you want for your 2 people. And the reason I'm cutting them really small is because when they're like really tiny pieces like this, 1/2-inch cubes, they cook really quickly. You can probably cook it between 5 and 8 minutes. So chances are it probably won't be done by the time we're done the session, but you'll kind of get the point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some oil in my pan. And you don't really need to add a lot. This has a little bit of oil in it. And what I find is like you do need a little bit in your frying pan. I mean, they don't tell you to, I think maybe they tell you to add some oil, but you don't really need a lot. It's really just to sort of thin out the curry. And if you're ever using spices, one of the ways to get the best flavor without sometimes like a lot of heat is really to bloom the spices. So that's really what the little bit of oil is going to do. We're going to put this into the frying pan and just kind of heat it up a little to bloom those spices, kind of like for them to release their flavor. Okay, so Robin is stirring that while it's releasing its flavor. And then this particular one, you can use milk in this one, or you can use coconut milk. So I'm using a combination. So I was using coconut, and I just use canned coconut milk. So if you are boxed ones, and so a really good brand to use for coconut milk, which is really just coconut milk. A lot of them have sugar added to them. It's one that's called Arroy D, ARROY-D, and it's a really good one to use. So this one comes in a box, looks like this, but Superstore sells them in the can. So what we're using here, and it's probably about $1, maybe $2 a can, I'm not sure. You don't really need to use the whole thing. If you don't like it really coconutty, I mixed this with milk, so half milk and half coconut milk. So it's about 1.5 cups altogether. And just let that kind of warm up a little, and then I'm going to add my potatoes right away. And so that's going to simmer for about 5 minutes. If you would like to, you can add a little bit of mixed veggies or some shredded cabbage maybe, or something that you like that maybe is a bit more vegetables. What I found was things like cauliflower you can add. Broccoli tends to change the flavor somewhat. I think it just has a bit too much like sulfury taste. So cauliflower has a more neutral flavor. So cauliflower is a good veggie to have, but you can just add I'm going to add some mixed veg. Okay, so we're going to let that one simmer for until the chicken is cooked. And then what you're going to do, so while that's cooking, I'll just talk about what you can do. So again, because I like to, cook at 11 o'clock at night. We also cook rice and put them in individual packages to freeze. And so this one is just brown rice. So you can use basmati rice, or you can use whatever kinds of rice you like. If you like to use the Penang curry with quinoa, I also pre-cook my quinoa. This is just quinoa, and I've cooked it in some chicken broth and put it in a Ziploc bag. So I'm just showing you the ways you can serve it. So you can put your rice on your plate. When it's done, we'll kind of plate it up for you. Or quinoa, if you prefer quinoa. I've not tried it with other things really, because I like curry, but I also like it with rice. And if you're doing low carb, it's delicious, and cauliflower rice. So I do eat it on cauliflower rice. So Robin will have regular rice, and I'll have cauliflower rice. And if you're interested, Costco has cauliflower rice in the freezer. And they also have it on the shelf, like these are shelf stable. They come in a little box like this, and they're pre-cooked and you just have to heat them up. Sort of like those rices you get in packages. They're not instant rice, they're just rices that you can cook for maybe 3-4 minutes, like the Uncle Ben's rice, but they're not instant rice. But these are already pre-cooked and you just really need to heat it up. So for me, sometimes when I'm hungry, I just want to eat right away. And you can see the packages are quite generous. And so yeah, this is just shredded cauliflower, which is kind of, you can make your own, which I also do. It's just kind of a lazy way if you don't feel like doing it. I do shred up cauliflower for the there too. Okay, so the chicken is cooking over here, and we have our rice. So we're going to start on number 5, just in the interest of time. Rahel, were there any questions?
Yeah, we were asked if you would share your scone recipe.
I would absolutely share my scone recipe. And this one, I've tried dozens of scone recipes. I have a cookbook where I have a scone recipe, but this one is actually like 4 or 5 ingredients, I think. It doesn't call for butter, but it does call for whipping cream. So it takes the place of butter and has the same kind of flakiness, and it is so scrumptious. And it's just a plain recipe, so I use that one, and I sometimes make like a lemon scone or currant and add fruit, so you can make it sweet or savory if you want. Okay, so let's start on number 5. So now so that was Asia. We're in Asia. We're in Thailand. Yeah. So we were in Thailand. So now we're gonna go to Korea or Vietnam or China. So several years ago, well, I traveled to China when I used to work, and they have probably 1,000 different kinds of soup. But most people, while this is more like Vietnamese, a lot of people are familiar with soups that are called pho, which is really like a big bowl of a lot of things. And most of us are probably familiar with those instant ramen noodles if you ever needed a quick lunch sometime. And they're basically instant noodles with some seasonings that maybe don't taste very good, and they're extremely salty and you don't really like them. So this is kind of a take on that, except we're going to jazz it up a little and we're going to make it nice. So basically what I've done is I've used the rest of the chicken broth that I had from my chicken carcass that I made bone broth out of. And this is like absolutely the easiest recipe. It is so easy. I don't even know if I should call it a recipe. It's an embarrassment to call it a recipe, but it is a recipe. So there are these ramen noodles in a package like this. I just use the noodles. I don't use the other stuff in it because, well, I don't. I just wanted the noodles. And so when I asked Robin to buy ramen noodles, he bought these ones that had the little packages of things. But what I really wanted was just the instant noodles. So this recipe is really easy. So I'm heating up the chicken broth over there. And if you're really desirous, you can add some things like, what's that green? Oh my gosh, I can't think of the name right now. But the lemongrass is what I was thinking of. So you can buy lemongrass in Superstore just to flavor your broth a little. I'm not doing that today. I'm just doing the soup. So just some broth. So if you have a box of broth, great. If you make your own broth, even better because it just tastes really yummy. And so what I did was I shredded up some cabbage, again, pre-prepping last night. So this is just some shredded cabbage and some mushrooms that I pre-cooked just a little bit and threw in the freezer because I like to have it when I'm making an omelet, and I don't want to have to go to the trouble of like frying some onions and frying some mushrooms and shredding some cheese. I just want to make an omelet and eat it right away. So we have some mushrooms here already partially cooked, the cabbage. We have our 2 sets of chicken, and these are so cute. I found these. Those are those little baby corns you see at when you go to a Chinese restaurant, and they're little tiny baby corns that come like probably 3 or 4 inches long, and I just cut them into little pieces. And so the broth is cooking there right now, heating there right now. And literally all you're going to do is just put all this stuff into your pot. So I'm going to start with the cabbage just because it's not pre-cooked. So I'm going to throw that in. I'm going to put in the mushrooms. I'm going to add the baby corn. All that's just going in the pot of soup. I'm going to break up my noodles because these need to cook about the same time as the cabbage. And just because I don't want really long noodles. Noodles. And then I'm going to put in the chicken. So I'm just going to let that simmer for a bit. I'm just going to add a bit more coconut milk to this curry. And I'm going to add the rest of it into this soup, this broth that I'm making. And so what we're going to have is a nice, rich, creamy soup. Okay, so the Thai curry is almost done. And I'm just now going to add the chicken to it. And just let it cook for a couple of minutes. You're not really letting it cook so much. Just kind of warm up and soak up some of the flavors from the curry. Okay, and we have our Penang curry. So I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to put it on the plate so you can actually see it plated. And with this one, you have your rice or your quinoa. You have your chicken, potatoes, veggies, and lots of sauce if you like sauce. So I put as much as I think I would eat, and there's probably still more than half left in the frying pan. So you can see, like, your chicken doesn't have to be, your chicken is your kind of your protein source, but you're also getting your veggies and your rice, your starches, and you have a complete meal here. So this is Robin's, well, he already had dinner, so you can save that for tomorrow.
Yeah,
Or
no,
you can
no,
eat
no.
it tonight.
I've done all this work. I have to eat before I go to bed.
And I just have to say, the guy just doesn't get fat. You know, me now, you know, I have to like, oh, I have to low carb this and I can't eat that. And he's like, oh yeah, I wish I could put on some weight. Like, yeah, uh-huh. So our soup is just kind of simmering here. And I'm just gonna get a bowl. And I know when you registered, you probably saw that you were eligible for some gifts. So what I'm going to do is collect the names of the people who attended tonight. Maybe Rahel, if you can do that. And then last month, I was attending a Facebook session with Manitoba Chicken. It was just something they were doing. And I ended up winning a $50 gift card. And I was telling the lady I was going to be planning to do one of these sessions for this group. She said, oh, that's great. I can give you some promotional things that maybe you might want to give to your your people. And I said, sure, okay. So tonight, 3 of you will win a little chicken cutting board like this. I got one too. So a chicken cutting board and a set of measuring spoons and a set of lovely measuring cups. Now, while you might say, well, what am I going to do with it? If you don't need it, maybe someone you know might like to have one. So we're going to draw for 3 sets of these tonight. So 3 of you will get a set each of this. So cutting board, the measuring spoons, and the measuring cups. So we'll see who the lucky winner is. So we'll probably, Rahel may contact you by email after the session is done. So she'll tell you where my address is so you can come and pick up your presents. We'll do a little, I do a lot of door dashes. So I leave sourdough bread out there and I leave cookies and coconut buns. And so your name will be on the bag with your little prizes. So I know you didn't sign up for the prizes, but it's always nice to have them. So Penang curry is done. And then we have our pho. So I'm just going to put it in a bowl because while it's a regular size bowl, this soup is so good that you just want to keep eating it. So the cabbage is basically just warmed up and just kind of softened up a little for 3-4 minutes. It's about the same amount of time it takes to make the noodles. Everything else is cooked already. And literally within less than 10 minutes, if you count cutting up your cabbage and bringing all your ingredients together, you have a really nice bowl of soup here. And by the way, there's like 3/4 of the pot of soup still left here. So I'm assuming you're just going to eat a lot of soup. So what I'm going to do now is just kind of garnish it with, again, just because I prep a lot of stuff ahead of time, I'm just going to throw a little bit of cilantro on the top. And I'll tell you, my daughter and I were in Banff a few months ago, and we stopped at a Thai restaurant there, and they had this bowl of pho for a lunch special. And it was a bowl about this size. Really, really delicious soup, but it was $13 for the bowl of soup. So here you've got like 10 meals basically for under $20. So you get out your little chopsticks and you start eating your things. And when you're done, you can rest your little chopstick on your little duck here. This is a little gift I got from a friend of mine from Taiwan. So they use chopsticks and they have a little thing to rest your chopsticks on. Very cute. Anyway, but because the soup is so thick, yeah, you're probably going to need a spoon as well because you can't be slurping it up. But basically, this is, if you're proficient, your soup is here. So now we have our pot left here of soup. Okay, so here's your first meal. So we have the quesadillas. I'm just going to tilt this down. So quesadillas, one meal. Pasta, that's for 2 people. So this was just for one person, just because we only made for one, but the other stuff is there to make the other one. We have our pho. We have our Penang curry. And you're saying, yeah, where's the 5th one? Oh, yeah, we're getting to it. And oh my God, this one, it smells so good and it looks so yummy. Like, is this yummy or what? Like, this is the scone cut in half, so it looks like biscuits. It smells so good. So basically, this is a meal by itself too. But you'd be hard pressed to finish this as a whole meal because it is actually quite a bit. Take out the other one so it doesn't overcook in there. And basically, there's your 5 meals. So I know I did a lot of prep work, and so the idea isn't for you to go and do a bunch of prep work, but basically, you can make some quesadillas, have it with a salad and a half of an avocado, and you have a meal. And that's like 2 small quesadillas, so that's more than enough for you to eat. You have a plate of pasta that you can, this is for 2, this pasta. So you'd be hard pressed to eat half of that, I'm pretty sure. This is 1 meal, so you should be able to eat that, but it's still quite hefty. The pho is just, I'm going to say this is half a serving because there's probably another serving and a half there. Just, you don't want to have a giant bowl that you're eating soup with. So start with 1 bowl and then go back and fill up another. That way it doesn't look too embarrassing. Then you have the Penang curry. This one is served over rice, but there's more than half of, like there's more than 1 more portion left there. So this is less than 1 portion, but it's still a fairly generous portion. And then I'm not going to touch this because I can feel the heat radiating from this. This is the pot pie, but instead of using biscuits or potatoes, like a shepherd's pie, I just use my scone recipe and cut them in half. So those are our 5 meals. And as you can see, there's nothing like super, super expensive about these. I mean, the Penang curry was a packaged mix, and that was probably under $2. And these are just things you would have in your kitchen anyway. So that's it. We're done. Any questions? Okay, well, there you go. Well, all right. I see